Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, your favorite Giants podcast. I'm your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike the Cranky Fan, and I am back at home. I am in my wonderful studio with my nice new wonderful backdrop. I am in this comfortable chair, sitting upright and well
Well,
lit. How are you?
it must be nice because I am in a shitty hotel in Woodbridge, New Jersey right now.
Hmm.
But we have one thing in common, Grump. Tonight, we are
We're
winners.
winners. It feels good. So I was in New Jersey for a week. Went to the Kansas City night game and then went to the Chargers game. Um, it's our first win of the year. I won't say, I think the Dallas game in the moment had me a little bit more jacked up. Because just the nature of the plays being exciting, the back and forth nature of it was kind of wild, but it's really close. And
Hmm
then just winning this game and being in the crowd and all of that,
hmm
the defense just taking over a game against a good team. Whereas part of it was like when we were beating Dallas, it was just like, what the hell are they doing? Like why are they letting us do this to them? I didn't get. I mean, there is some of that in this game, and we're going to talk about that, but I didn't really walk away with the same feeling. Like I came away with like a feeling of accomplishment in this game.
Well,
Shitty thing, leaving New Jersey, coming back down here, my car threw a shoe, so that's why this
hey,
episode is a
that's
day
not
late.
funny.
Is that
I
some kind of
don't need any Marco Wilson references here, please.
ah? I think
Not
that's
good.
actually a horse reference, but
Uh,
um, yeah. So I my 9 hour drive turned into a 12 hour drive because I had to stop at an auto body in Virginia for 3 hours while my car got fixed.
oh,
So
you
that's
ever
why
see
this
a
episode is a day late.
you ever see the movie Doc Hollywood?
No.
When Michael J. Fox is driving to LA and he breaks down and or he runs into a fence or something in South Carolina and he has to live there for a week. That could have been you, buddy.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not living in Virginia for a week. I'll tell you that. Everybody was super nice though. Wasn't weird. I don't
Yeah.
know anything about that movie, but it sounds like people are weird in that movie.
Yeah, it's basically one of those. If you had HBO in 1995, you saw it a million times, but you wouldn't dare watch it in 2025.
Um,
But anyway, to your point about being in the stadium, it felt great. It felt, for an I'd say almost a half, all of the things we've been thinking about for the last year and a half, two and a half years have kind of melted away. It stopped becoming in your thoughts about big picture. It stopped the thoughts about, are we going to change quarterbacks? Are we going to change head coach? Are we going to change general manager? Thoughts of planes flying overhead, thoughts of Mara, and our best wishes to Mara, obviously. But all of that stuff kind of melted away, and it went back to what we're supposed to be as football fans, rooting for our team to win. And it was a crescendo. And we got to the fourth quarter, and we get in the second half of that fourth quarter. Not only were we rooting for our team to win, we all felt that we were the better team out there. And we won that game. We didn't, the Chargers didn't lose that game. We won it. We beat them. That defense, the defensive line, the pass rush, and a rookie quarterback making plays when he had to, and a rookie running back, busting through the line and getting extra yards when he was getting hit right at the line of scrimmage and stuff. These are things that just made us really happy about the now. I know Abdul Carter is saying like the future is now. I don't know about that yet, just yet, but I know we saw a nice glimpse into the future, and it made me excited and happy. And taking that train home with a happy feeling is something we haven't had in a long time, but it felt really good again.
it's just that the penalties were down. Everything felt like it was kind of
Yeah. The real football team, Jack. That's what it
yeah,
was.
yeah, really. It's funny you mentioned like not thinking about planes overhead. Like we had articles written that there was going to be a plane overhead, and it never happened. I don't really know why that was. There's some reports that one was canceled due to weather. I don't know if that's true or not. My
Yeah,
conspiracy theory is that the Giants organization just bought up all the planes.
it was
Um,
too bright blue and sunny out, and it
yeah,
was too less wind to have planes, obviously. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was a perfect day outside. I mean, perfect. Not really even windy. Like,
No.
um,
Bottle
but
that up, please. Yeah.
yeah, really. So I guess we can get into all this stuff, but the general feeling of this game is interesting because we walked into this game and it's funny, walked around the parking lot, went to a couple of tailgates, was looking around for some others. We'll try harder. I'll do a better job of pre-planning this stuff in the future instead of day of. But
It happens.
it I talked to a lot of different people, and everybody had these tame, rational expectations for Jaxson Dart in his first game and playing the Chargers. It's like he doesn't have to light anything up. I just want to feel like he's in control, and I want to see us function a little bit. Everything was very rational, very tame, not expecting the world from him. And then you leave and you get on the train to get back to Secaucus, and the place is lively.
Yeah.
People are excited. They're kind of even. I would say even just the specter of Jaxson Dart starting. Now again, this is a little apples and oranges because we're talking about a night game versus a 1:00 game. But walking into the stadium with Jaxson Dart as quarterback, you got a little bit more juice from the crowd than we got against Kansas City. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, going to that Kansas City game, it's felt like we're just like going through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
It like I think I even told you, I'm like, this is an opening day in the NFL. We waited, 9 months for this, and no one cares. But yeah, I mean, not only did it feel like opening day on this past Sunday, but it feels like opening day for like the future. You know, this coaching staff, this regime was brought in to change this team, and it's taken longer than we wanted. But the first real tangible sign you see of change is when the quarterback that they want runs out onto the field, not as a backup, not running a gimmick play, not being, not a preseason game. It is a regular season game, and it 12:57 p.m. on a Sunday, he's going out there to take over as head coach of your as starting quarterback of your team. So the excitement level is not just for this one game, but like, okay, we're starting. Now it starts. The clock is now started. And I was excited. It felt like, opening day at baseball, or opening day for, the first day of school. It's that little extra special feeling.
Felt a little bit like you're supposed to be watching a fish grow legs, and instead it's off and running, which is weird to think about and probably gross. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna probably get you some therapy after that one.
well, I'm just the expectations were very like, oh, whatever. You get my point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, sure.
so, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that the Giants scored 21 points. They never were playing from behind in this game. The opening drive was engineered perfectly. And
Mhm.
yet, everything I'm saying, they scored, and they scored 21 points too. This was not a 13-6 slog. Um, Even with that, Jaxson Dart went through for 111 yards.
Yeah.
Went 13 of 20. He took 5 sacks. Some of them were real bad. Um, it was not, you know, had this not been his first game, this would not be a hang on the fridge report card.
Well, really, if this was something where you didn't watch the game, and
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're on a flight from London to New York and there's no Wi-Fi and you landed, the first thing you did was you look at the score and you look at the box score and you didn't notice who the quarterback was, you'd be like, all right, well, we won, but we still look like shit.
Mm.
But it's like, okay, well, just a perception because the name next to quarterback doesn't say Wilson, it says Dart. That's different. Um, you know, you can change the quarterback, but there's still a lot of fundamental problems with this team. We have a very eh offensive line. We have, we're going to talk about the problems we're going to have a wide receiver now. The wide receiver depth took a major hit, and not only depth, but just your number one weapon is gone now. So this team is still, even with a rookie quarterback who's showing some promise and showing some moxie and showing like he may belong, this is still a unit that's going to struggle consistently to score a lot of points, do well in the red zone, uh, you know, do things on third down, you know, so it's still a work in progress, but at least now you have the parts that you want to be running it starting to work together week after week, practice after practice, game after game.
So getting into the offense here, Jaxson Dart was okay. I mean, there was really not a lot of throws downfield. There was one deep throw. I mean, there were a couple conversions. He was really good on third down. I think that is probably where he was the most impressive. I would not necessarily say he was the best, but he was the most impressive on third down, converting quite a few of them. And some of those were tricky plays. Some of them were long plays. I really liked the throw. I think it was 3rd and 6 to Darius Slayton, where he escaped the pocket, called Darius Slayton to run towards him. Could have easily just tucked the ball and tried to run for it because he might have gotten it, but eyes downfield, trying to make a play, communicating with his receiver, being on the same page as them. It kind of does. I don't want to get into like comparisons or start looking too much in the past, but like, when was the last time you remember seeing Daniel Jones when he's breaking the pocket, commanding his guys on the field to go in a direction and throw to them, and it works?
I remember
struggling to remember a single time.
When he kind of broke the pocket, Daniel Jones, he decided he was going to run, and that was what he was going to do. That one play where you mentioned where he's kind of like, motioning the receiver to come in or something, that's something you see like a Patrick Mahomes type of guy do. Like,
Sure.
I'm going to create something out of nothing. Josh Allen does things like that.
Sure.
Not putting him in the same class as those, but
no, but it's a trait
that's the mindset that they do.
It's a trait that a lot of very good quarterbacks have, and it's a trait that is lacking from a lot of not very good quarterbacks. Say it like that. He had another really long completion to Daniel Bellinger that I think was on third down. I think it was like 3rd and 16 or something, like 3rd and 18. Converted there. Actually, I can look it up. It was 13 yards. He looked in command on third down. He didn't look like the moment was too big for him. He didn't look like he was freaking out. I think that decisions he made to tuck the ball and run were generally pretty good. But most everything was quick game stuff. A lot of stuff didn't really involve him going through like a whole set of progressions. I thought that he looked good in the pocket and stepping up, but at times overtrusted his athleticism, took some bad sacks. I think the one where he just got smoked on the blind side, on the front side, where he just wasn't looking at all, that might have been his fault for not setting the protection, not seeing it correctly. I'm not entirely sure, but a completely unblocked defender just ripped his face off.
And I think I kind of remember there was one little stretch in the third quarter. I think I'd mentioned to you, like, he's losing it a little bit right now. Like, it's okay for a rookie, especially in his first game, where there's gonna be a couple periods in a game where it's kind of like, okay, the game's getting a little too fast right now, slow down. And I think that was in that little period. I think he was sacked twice. It just looked a little frazzled.
Yeah.
So, but to his credit, next series he looked better and he was fine the rest of the game. So, good way to bounce back. We've seen quarterbacks, we've seen rookies, backups who press it in the service. When it starts to go downhill, they're useless the rest of the game, and that was not the case with him.
Yeah, and to his credit, you know what I mean, outside of it being his first start, outside of this being a good defense, outside of this being a good team that he's playing against, they had to alter their game plan, because there's no way that the game plan involved not having Malik Neighbors for 3 out of 4 quarters.
Sure.
One of the few deep passes that he threw was on a free play where he just kind of chucked it to Neighbors in one-on-one go ball situation. Neighbors jumped up, tore his ACL, went down, didn't get up, got carted off. That
carted off immediately too. Like that cart, it couldn't have been any more than like a minute or so, and that cart was already on the field. Like,
well, I mean, we knew what was going on too. I mean, he didn't even budge when he was on the ground. Wan'Dale Robinson came over and threw his helmet off. Russell Wilson jogged all the way over from the sideline, kneeled down with him.
Right.
The entire team. I mean, you see some guys in suits running over. It's bad.
Yeah, it looked like some of the guys in JFK running over after Kennedy got shot. Yeah. It was really weird.
If only, never mind. It changes the complexion of the rest of the year, right? In terms of this game, I will excuse a lot of the 111 yards passing, 13 of 20, because Malik Neighbors really is the engine of this offense right now. And now they, speaking as someone who was trying to drive a car without an engine, it doesn't go very
Well,
well, and you don't get very far. So
I I I kind of felt like that I was completely fine with the numbers because to me, week one of your career, the goal is let's get through it without any
yeah, and
catastrophes.
there were no
Putting
turnovers.
putting him in situations where he throws the ball up for grabs, throws the ball where a safety's just waiting. He was not put in those positions, and the way the flow of the game went, having a lead, a close scoring game, a running game that was effective, a defense that was, causing turnovers and things. You didn't need to put him in that position. So why bother? I you know, gaudy numbers sometimes are a result of circumstance, and the circumstances didn't we had to try to do anything like that. So I didn't really care about the numbers at all. This was more about,
Sure.
looking at poise, looking at, okay, one of the big things my concerns was of coming having him play early was he ready? We there was obviously a plan from the day he was drafted that at some point he was going to take over. It wasn't week one. I'm pretty sure it wasn't week four. It was probably later on. So if he's being pressed into service early, what are we getting? And we're not getting a quarterback that had 3 or 4 basic, plays, and if not, just run around if you can't. It looked like more than that. So he's done a great job of getting himself ready to this point. More of the offense will be given to him as the season goes on. We're gonna have to scheme around not having Malik Neighbors, but you know that's why we pay Brian Dable a lot of money. He's supposed to be the offensive guy. He has to come up with something.
Yeah. Um, man, you hit everything on that one. We'll get into the big picture of Malik Neighbors in a little bit, but I want to
Yeah.
talk about one more thing before we get into that whole
Yes.
separate conversation, and that is the assistance of a running game. Really,
Hmm?
for what you had said about Jaxson Dart not putting the ball in harm's way, at no point was he really throwing anything that was like, ah, God, you know what I mean? Like, never a throw that looked like it was going to be an interception or just
The only
a really poor decision or anything like that. The big black mark, though, is, of course, the fumbled snap, like backed up on the goal line, which thankfully Andrew Thomas was there and not on IR and could jump over and recover that because Jaxson Dart was unable to recover it himself. And it's something that's interesting because I saw him at the Senior Bowl. He had trouble. I mean, you can look up other people's tweets about it. It's not just me saying this. Like, he had trouble under center taking snaps each day of practice, and it was
Mhm.
something that was just in the back of my mind. Nobody really made a big deal out of it, and then it just didn't repeat itself in spring and summer. So I just didn't care. I was like, all right, well, he didn't do that a lot in college. He got the kinks worked out in Mobile, whatever. Maybe not. So that's definitely something I'm going to continue to keep eyes on because of all times to fumble a snap right on your own goal line is truly the worst spot.
And these aren't the same type of like fumble/turnovers that Daniel Jones was doing.
No,
This is basic mechanics, and maybe it's just more reps, more reps, more reps.
sure.
But yeah.
So the assistance of a running game, I think, is a good supplement for Malik Neighbors in the moment, right? You have a quarterback that can run the ball. You can open up the running game using that, and I think they have a running back that helps an offensive line that can't really block well because Cam Scadaboo ended up with about 80 yards on 25 carries, which is not, that's not really something that you're being like, oh yeah, do you remember that? Cam Scadaboo was insane that game. He had 25 carries for 80 yards. I mean, talk about some
I
guys have like 200 yards in a game. That's now we're talking more than
remember,
you remember where you were.
yeah, we're in a fan base right now, Grump, where they are they are looking forward to the next time Scatterboo just knocks the shit out of a defensive lineman or a linebacker or something. So it's kind of like there's a wow factor because it's like, oh, he's just gonna pound somebody. But great, it gets him an extra 2 or 3 yards. It's not getting him an extra 50 yards or something. And remember, Tyrone Tracy didn't play.
Well, yeah, I mean,
So
so Tyrone Tracy is going to be out for a little while. He's
right.
suffered a shoulder, I believe, dislocation. He'll be out for a
So
couple of weeks. But I mean, Tyrone Tracy, I look, I think the two of them are a really good 1-2 punch. Tracy has the speed, quickness, and burst that Cam Scatterboot doesn't. But more importantly, he has that vision that is
Hmm.
really developed for a young player, second year. Well, I mean, I guess he was an older rookie, but still,
Right.
a young player in this league, not a lot of experience at the running back position. He has really good vision to,
Hmm.
take what's in front of him, take advantage of guys, and I think he can continue to get better. Cam Scatterboot does not really have that. Um,
Right.
he sort of does, but it's not great. He doesn't have the quickness and burst. Not to say that he's slow or not quick, but among running backs, it's not really there. But he
Hmm.
makes up for a bad offensive line by just bouncing off of the first guy. That first
Sure.
guy's hitting him at the line of scrimmage, and he's going forward for another 3 yards. He's getting 3 when other running backs would be 0. When he's getting hit, 5 yards downfield, we're looking at 8-yard runs. So like, it's not like he didn't have he had a 16-yard run in this game. So it's not like he didn't have big chunk runs. It's just that this run game sucks. It's not a good
Yeah.
run blocking offensive line. They're not very creative with their run calls. Um, he makes
And
up for that on individual effort.
nowhere is that more evident than when you get to the red zone.
Holy shit, dude! I, I don't know what it is they want to do. Like they can't seem to make up their mind if they want to be cute, if they want to be straight ahead. They don't really call plays in the order that I would do it. I mean, um, I just you look around the league at some of the really creative run scheme ideas and using lots of guys in motion and using jet motion sometimes as a distraction, sometimes as a thing. It's a mess. And
Hmm.
even the one touchdown they had in the red zone was that inside shovel pass to Theo Johnson. Not my favorite play. I mean, it's a super dangerous play. Um,
To play Georgia runs a lot, especially when they had like Stetson Bennett even before him.
Well, in
Very
college, it's
forcing you up.
easy, right? Because you have
Yeah.
such aggressive players that are always
Right.
trying to make a play. That you know, that's the exact play you run against an aggressive defense.
Right.
Um, it worked out, but it makes me nervous, especially with a
Hmm.
rookie quarterback and a guy like
Yeah.
Theo Johnson. Um, yeah, I don't know. They just the red zone is not working, and it's a combination of things. I think some of it's the playbook. I think some of it is just personnel. Like uh, the simple matter is, if you're inside the 5 on its first down, a competent offense should be able to just run the ball up the middle and score a touchdown.
Well,
Period.
again, let's parse this a little bit by, we just had a conversation that, they're trying to put Jackson Dart in a position to not make a catastrophic mistake. And passing in the red zone, passing from the 5 yard line is risky. It's harder. You're trying to, thread needles. You're relying on receivers getting open in a very, very small space. And these receivers are bleh, especially without Malik Neighbors. So I think, you know, this being game one, year one of Jackson Dart is going to make the red zone in this game tougher. You know, he gets more confidence. The coaching staff has more confidence of him. You might see a little more uh, spice out of the passing options within the red zone. But I think for right now, it was just okay. We're going to take our 3 point. We know we have 3 points here. We're not going to try to screw this up. And hopefully, hope that the running game is better than it was. But again, defense knows that they're not going to put Jackson Dart in a position to go all over the place, so they're going to be gearing up for the run too. So I think this was probably the worst opportunity for the red zone to be successful today for a lot of factors that I think going forward you may not see as much. And we
Um,
said that I know it does suck for the whole year as well. So
yeah, I mean, I think my biggest thing, you're 100% right, especially about threading needles with a rookie quarterback and making quick decisions, snap decisions, and even Russell Wilson in the Super Bowl made a red zone throw that he wishes he had back. So, um, but I mean, the simple fact is, a good offense should be able to get 3 tries running the ball up the middle. They should be able to get those yards.
agreed, agreed.
Um, in regards to Malik Neighbors going down in just week 4, what are your thoughts on this wide receiver room, and should they try and fix it up? Where do you land on all those things?
See, the master plan, Grump, was they were going to keep Jalen Hyatt fresh and not play him for the first 3 games because they knew Neighbors would be out for the year and he'd be ready to take over a wide receiver one and be comeback player of the year. Or They got a lot of problems because I don't know, wide receivers don't grow on trees, and even if you move everybody up to be wide receiver 1 and 2, whatever. We were thin anyway for relevant wide receivers. It's obvious because Jalen Hyatt was barely even playing to begin with, and he was wide receiver 4. Um, I don't know what they're going to do. Scout the waiver wire and look for bodies. More 12 personnel. I don't know what the answer is. But the one thing though is you know it hurts this team for this year, but it kind of changes your calculus on how you are grading this season. Malik Neighbors is so important to this offense. He gets the volume of the targets to him. He's the most effective running back. He changes plays. He changes the way defenses look at it. That when he's gone, you know, stop with you know, Brian Dable's future relies on how successful Jaxson Dart looks or potentially looks because you just lost his biggest target. And, you know, we're going to have to scheme around not having him. That's going to potentially have us not be as explosive. It's going to probably, damper down Jaxson Dart's numbers and his effectiveness too. So this really, obviously trying to win next week against New Orleans and then the Philly games and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, it really could potentially slow down the development of Dart and this offense this year and what this coaching staff is trying to do. So it really sucks.
So that's interesting. This might end up being like a larger conversation now, but
Mhm.
um, Malik Neighbors going down clearly is going to affect the offense. It's probably going to affect the win loss record in ways where we'll be talking about. If this team had Neighbors, this would have been a win or whatever. And I don't think that they're going to go out there and replace wide receiver 1. I do think that they'll add bodies, at the back end of the wide receiver depth chart because I think that wide receiver 4 was already bad, right? Like Jalen Hyatt, Bo Collins, those guys were not very far away from each other in terms of what they currently offer the team.
Yeah.
Um, uh, you know,
And
I,
the coach told you they're unplayable because they don't play them.
you mean like spoke with actions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I mean, like they're already bad there anyway, and you're not really going to replace like a top 10 wide receiver in the league midseason. It's just like those guys aren't sitting
Mhm.
around.
We're not
The
making
only
any
thing you
trades.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is the only thing you can do is make a trade, and like how smart is that really? For the long term of this team and your tenure as general manager, I don't think that you have to win right away. I also think that just trading for a wide receiver 1 doesn't necessarily just make you a winner anyway. I mean, let's just say that they give up the entire draft class for the next 4 years for Justin Jefferson. There's going to be an adjustment period in there, and you still have a rookie quarterback throwing to him. So what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, it
Mhm.
it just doesn't really make a ton of sense. Now, of course, you always have your phone to the ear of the receiver, and there's
Unless they're calling you out, Jalen Hyatt,
yeah,
and you're not.
unless they're calling you, right? Yeah. Um, but you listen for it's still week 4. You know what I mean? We're heading into week 5. Teams can have the bottom fall out from underneath them. Coaches could get fired. We don't know how things go. So keep your options open. But I think what's
Kind of.
interesting that you said is that like now Brian Dable isn't even being graded on Jaxson Dart's performance. I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying, right? Like, especially like the general numbers. I mean, if you're just gonna pull up a stat sheet, you probably shouldn't be making coaching decisions anyway. Obviously, there's more to coaching than just pulling up a stat sheet, but I do think that Brian Dable's future with the team will hinge on how the offense looks. It just means that they will take the fact that Malik Neighbors is not here into consideration when knowing what that means, right?
Yeah.
Like that now changes the bar on what looks good and what looks bad, in my opinion.
I, yeah. I mean, to me, it's going to be. I had this. I talked to several people in the parking lot Sunday about this, about Dart and Dable, and it's like he has to show enough. I have to see something out of Dart to make me have any confidence in keeping Gable. And I was trying to think of what does that actually mean? You know, like, uh, numbers aren't it. It's kind of like some of that moxie we saw yesterday, is it? Because you can tell right away if a quarterback is not going to make it in this league. There's been plenty of examples of that's not a starting quarterback in this league. There's quarterbacks that are like, all right, this guy's probably just going to be a backup. Then there's guys who just the rare instance where they come in right away and they're, wow, this guy's leading this team, and this team's going to win some games with him. I mean, it's way too early to tell, but you know, I said this in the offseason. I'm sticking with it too. That when they decide to keep them and let them get their quarterback, they're going to give them all the time in the world to prove that Dart isn't the guy. So I don't think even this year, whatever Dart did, unless he completely shit the bed, complete shit all over the artificial turf that ruins people's careers. I thought Dable was safe this year anyway. So,
I'm
it's
inclined to agree with you. I do think that he was safe right from the get go of letting them choose, and who
yeah,
Dable is, and why they brought him in specifically was to work with quarterbacks, and you did get a playoff win out of Daniel Jones at one point. Um,
because remember the plan was not for him to start in week 4.
mhm.
So that means if the plan's not for him to start in week 4, you have a quarterback now who's not theoretically ready to start according to what their plan was from April. So it's not really fair to judge, even yesterday, and also
No,
what
but I
next
mean,
week is going to be.
you're not making the decision based on the one game sample size of
No, no,
Jackson
no, no,
Dart. So
no, no,
I
no.
do think you have to see, like, if this offense looks like shit by the end of the year, I do think that there is a real chance that he gets fired. And you know,
It had to be very systemic. It can't be because, well,
you don't think there's
we have
a
no Malik
chance? It
neighbors.
has to be systemic for them to be a chance that they fire him. I don't think so.
I think for the conversation for him to be fired or not has to be like, this offense is just not going to work. Like, the play calling we've decided is just no good, or this offensive line is not coached right, or these it's schematically garbage. They
So
make
so
that
here's the
decision.
thing. You're leading this into the other point I wanted to make. So that's why I didn't mean
Hmm.
to like cut you off, but
No, no,
yeah. So
go ahead.
I hear what you're saying. I get you on Jackson Dart grading him on a curve without Malik Neighbors. We're sitting here talking about don't trade for a wide receiver one. Forget it. It's not that important. Bigger picture
Hmm.
is more important. Here's the thing. Brian Dable as a coach does things that don't make any sense,
It's a
and
separate conversation.
yeah,
Yes, and
yes,
agreeable.
and
Yes.
it's part of it, right? So like I'm
Mhm.
saying, like the offense can look like shit, but if the offense looks like shit at the end of this year with Jackson Dart, doesn't really look like he's made a ton of progress, or it's at least arguable. But I mean, there are other things to Brian Dable that are annoying, and
Mhm.
we sit with Anthony in our row, and he was losing his mind.
Oh my God, he lost his shit.
And
Yeah,
at the end
star
of
for
the
him.
second quarter, yeah, start for him. He was on top. He was absolutely blowing a gasket on 4th and 2. It was third and 6 really. With 45 seconds left in the second quarter, Justin Herbert passed to Johnston. They're at the Giants 41. They have 4 yards. That was on 3rd and 6. Okay, so now it's 4th and 2 with 38 seconds left, and the Giants call timeout
Hmm.
on what later became an 8-play 75-yard drive. I don't understand what the purpose of that timeout is. You're at the 41. They're at the 41-yard line at 4th and 2. It's not like it would be different if they were running up to the line of scrimmage to run a play on 4th and 2, and you're like, no, 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 I got to get the right defense out there. This is too critical of a situation. That's not
Yeah.
what happened. I mean, that timeout was called the moment the play was over. This was a saving time for my offense kind of timeout, and I don't understand that. You have no Malik Neighbors at this point. You know that. So you're not marching down the field. So like, I don't know. I mean, even at 4th and 2 from the 41-yard line, we were talking about like a 57-yard field goal. Not
a
outside of the
kicker,
realm of a
from a guy
possibility.
who's for free. He's your backup kicker.
No, 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 no. What are you talking about? For the
Sorry,
Chargers.
never mind. I'm talking about when we get the ball back.
No, no,
I'm
no.
I'm
I'm saying right
I'm way
there.
ahead of myself. I'm way ahead of
There's a
myself. Never
chance that
mind.
the Chargers aren't even punting. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why not try that? So, okay, so they try that, and then you get to start at your own 41 with, 30-ish seconds left. You know,
Right.
I guess sort of, but I mean, I'm not playing that hyper aggressive right there. And essentially, all they did is give them enough time to call the right play. We were offsides, and they threw a touchdown.
Yeah.
A 36-yard touchdown followed right after that, where Deontay Banks just blew coverage, and
Well,
that play was only really possible. I honestly think that they're probably either calling their own timeout if they had any left. I can't remember.
I will concede there's an amendment to my thought that they're safe regardless because they want to get this quarterback developed. If they just prove, incompetence to the point of negligence on things where it's costing them games because, now we're getting into 4 years of data with this coaching staff
Right.
that their clock management, uh, personnel decisions, things like that are just they want to move
Play
in a different
calling,
direction. That
getting along
that
with
will
your
supersede everything.
coordinators. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and
It,
all
it
this for
doesn't
the
matter.
the the,
It
the
doesn't matter who your
known
quarterback
positive.
is.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but the known positive of him being good with quarterback, if it even is known, of being good with quarterbacks or whatever, it's like I get it. It's important. It's super important. But there's a lot of negatives too. So he better be a quarterback whisperer. Is all I'm saying.
But
Um,
even if you have, if you have Josh Allen or you have Joe Montana or you have Jesus Christ, what good is it if, you're giving the other offense more opportunities with bad
hmm,
timeout management and costing wins
right.
that way? It doesn't matter. It offsets it. So, yes, if we could, I think if there's a continued pattern this year of the things that drive us all insane about this coaching staff, that could be something that overrides you know, and also if Jackson Dart, if we get to week 14 and he's excelling more than we thought, is the value of having a coach that is a quarterback whisperer needed as much because maybe that quarterback could thrive under another coach.
Maybe, but I think you'd want him after for like another year or
But
something
I
like that.
think
But
I
I
think
get what you're saying.
if you're trying to tie that into this guy is a horrible game coach and we're looking for reason maybe to get rid of him, you can put that into that ledger for that.
Yeah. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball.
Defense, yeah.
So, man, if there was, I'm going to give a star to the entire pass rush, because if there
Hmm.
is one reason this team won, if I could only pick one reason this team won, it was the pass rush. Justin Herbert was held to just about 200 yards passing. He was 23 of 41. He threw two picks. I mean, he looked bad.
We said it early on, might have been the second drive. He just doesn't look very comfortable back there.
Oh my god, right away. And I know the Chargers offensive line was hurt and this is a game that they should be dominating, but in order to be good, you have to win the matchups you're
You
supposed to
have to
win.
dominate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they
do it.
did. They were every bit as dominant as they needed to be. Honestly, Justin Herbert played like a hero, only getting sacked twice. Obviously that comes with the asterisk of two picks. Um, he looked uncomfortable. They couldn't get a rhythm going. They were dropping passes because they were too low or too early or too late. Timing was all
A
kinds of
lot of
off.
drop passes.
They,
How many
they
drop passes were there?
I mean I don't know the answer to
Like
that, but
7, 8? It was a lot.
it was early on too.
Hmm.
Um, they were living in the backfield, and it was everybody. Dexter Lawrence got a pick. Darius Alexander got pressures. Kayvon Thibodeau got a sack. Brian Burns had the sack of the game in the fourth quarter, pretty much ending the drive, almost ending the game right there. Abdul
Hmm.
Carter was getting pressures left and right. I believe he was the pressure on the Drew Phillips
Hmm.
interception. Dexter Lawrence nearly had a pick six. God damn, this fan base deserved to see a pick six with Dexter Lawrence. This was an incredible pass rush. Now, just about every other aspect of the defense stunk, though.
Well, um, Dexter Lawrence, as he's running that back, in my mind, I'm like, you better get in the end zone because we're not getting a touchdown if you don't. So I was trying to push him from our seats forward, 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 and get into the end zone. That's the way it kind of felt to me, and sure enough.
Yeah,
But
sure enough, we didn't score on that
we
one.
didn't score. We had to settle for a field goal.
Um,
You
yeah,
want to
I
have
don't know. Go ahead.
the
What
conversation about the cornerback, your buddy?
are we talking about? Banks?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say this: Banks played very bad, and we can single
Mhm.
him out. Every defensive back played pretty badly in this game.
Yeah.
There were some notable exceptions, and there's some pass breakups by Paulson Adebo, Drew Phillips, Cordell Flott. All of these guys kind of had their moments in the under the lights, but all of them also had bad moments. Tyler Nubin took a horrendous angle on the
Yeah.
the Hampton touchdown. Deontay Banks gave up a touchdown on Quentin Johnson, the aforementioned throw on first down following that fourth down conversion on an false start or an offsides. Um, it was bad. It was bad all over the place. Paulson Adebo got taken for a ride at one point.
How much are you attributing this to bad scheme as opposed to bad individual play?
I mean, the problems with the defense are a little bit numerous, right? Like, for starters, on the personnel front, they're not very good against the run, just period. The defensive line outside of Dexter Lawrence is not good against the run. It was a problem in preseason. It was a problem before the preseason. We knew just looking at the roster that none of those guys really, outside of Dexter Lawrence, was any good against the run. The linebackers we knew was a weak position group, right? Bobby Okereke was
Mhm.
coming onto a bad year. Micah McFadden was coming from an up year, but you know he's not exactly like Fred Warner out there or Ray Lewis. Like, we know that Micah McFadden does have a limited ceiling for who he is, and outside of that, like, there was just no depth, like, at all.
Mhm.
So we knew that was thin, and now here we are. Micah McFadden's not available to play. He's done. Um, so that's bad. And none of the defensive backs are people that were like, yeah, he's a good tackler. Like,
Right.
outside of Drew Phillips. You know what I mean? Who's a smaller guy. It's just that when he's coming downhill, he's somebody who hits with authority. Now, Cordell Flott is another one who's really physical, but he's thin and wiry. Deontay Banks is not a good tackler, and he's a poor effort player. We know this. Tyler Nubin, now we have enough data to say that he's not good at making tackling angles. Um, and Javon Holland was never really a great tackler either. Paulson Adebo was never. So there is a personnel issue there. There's a bit of a scheme issue. In this game, from a pass rush standpoint, we had a much more aggressive, you know, game plan. There were some six-man pressures. There were a lot of stunts and twists on the defensive line. They didn't play a lot of like soft coverage or anything like that. So they were much more aggressive in this game. Now that could be because they were finally playing with a lead. Giants had a
Mhm.
lead the entire game. That certainly makes your defensive game plan a little bit more flexible. It could be because they knew that the Chargers' offensive line was beat up and they had some backups in there. And then, mid game, they lost Joe Alt too. So it was just getting worse as the game went on. So it just became something to feast on. I don't know. But it is a little bit of both. You know what I mean? I'm not really sure how to put percentages on it. Um, but it is.
It feels like a personnel thing to me. When you, s-
I
when you see the
definitely
same
think a
things,
personnel would cover up a lot of the scheme things for sure.
yeah, I agree.
I don't really feel the opposite, right? Like, I'm not really sure how much being aggressive is gonna cover up the fact that the guys in the back can't tackle, the linebackers are running to the wrong gaps. um
Banks doesn't know how to, you know, catch a ball where
Try.
he get right position. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have the effort. He doesn't have the effort
Yeah,
gene.
you know what I mean. Like, they're yeah. I definitely think that if you were to upgrade the personnel, it would cover up the scheme stuff somewhat. But you're up, changing the scheme around is not changing what you're playing with there.
Yeah, agreed.
Um, that being said,
Yep.
I was happy to see. I mean, the pressure rates alone were nuts in this game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's just
Well, I
that's
mean,
got to be the way they move forward.
I mean, it's the position group we've invested the most in between free agency, trade, and draft pick. I would expect that to be the strength of this team right now.
Oh, absolutely, and
Yeah.
we'll see if it continues to be that way. But right now, for sure, that is the strength of this team. I don't. Did you have any stars, any farts to point? I mean, I'm definitely giving a fart to Tyler Newman. I'm sorry. I know it's like one play. It's a major play. I mean, it was a 54-yard touchdown run, and he's not the only one at fault. But when you're the safety, you cannot be consistently taking bad tackling.
Um, I think I want to let's give the kicker a star.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about the kicker,
You
Jude
know, we had
McAtavey.
this was a whole discussion we had about, for the last couple of weeks about us being unprepared getting into the season and with our shorts down last week. And, it was kind of a non-factor this week. And that's kind of what you want from your kicker,
Well, they didn't try a
especially,
50
especially
plus
with
with
a
him.
team. It's so important with this team that struggles so much in the red zone. You have to make all your gimmies. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is a big deal.
Oh my God, it's a huge deal because
Yeah.
missing a gimme is something that people do not forget. If you miss a 50
Hmm.
plus yarder, it becomes like damn, he missed that field. But
And
no
we're gonna
one
have a
really
frequency. We're gonna have a large frequency of gimmies this year because we're so bad in the red zone.
sure. I'll say that the Giants did not have Jude McAtomney try a 50 plus yarder that they could have, and I think elected to punt.
Hmm.
Um, but his extra point and two field goals were all good. His kickoff seemed fine to me.
Hmm.
I'm glad they went this route. I think the international pathway program is something that's pretty cool. I think that some position groups are more likely to yield a successful NFL player than others. I think kicker is one of those position groups.
Hmm.
Um, and at no point did he do anything that I was just like, why not give him a shot? And it seems like all last week they brought on Young Wei Koo because they needed somebody. Getting a veteran certainly somebody that you should do. They had a week long competition between the two of them. It seems that Jude won out. They gave him the shot. He hasn't screwed
Good.
up yet. And I think this is the way to go, right? Like if you have something here, now is the time to figure it out. They should have figured it out over the summer. They decided they didn't want to, and they prioritized Graham Gano. I don't want to bring that up every single week, but what's past is past. We can now move forward, figure it out now. Is this
I-
kid worth anything?
I'd rather figure out now for a team that's probably going nowhere than a team that
Absolutely.
it could depend on if we make a playoff spot or not because we're dicking around seeing if a guy could be a kicker in the NFL. This is where we find out now, and if we don't think so, we go invest in one next year.
Um, any other stars or farts to award for this game?
Let's see. Um, I think let's give a star to Dable. I
Okay.
think he made the move to Jaxson Dart, and it's probably goes. We've been hearing the bullshit how much he loves Jaxson Dart, and we've heard the narrative all about it. But it's not easy to make the change when he did. I know there's noise, the fans are buzzing, the media is all down his throat and everything, but coaches are stubborn. Lord knows. Look at my college coach. He's the stubbornest goddamn son of a bitch in the world. If he believes in what he thought would he be ready to bring in this quarterback to play now, he had to adjust his plan and go against the natural stubbornness of a coach to start him. And it may not mean anything in the long run. It still might be a 3-win team, but to say, okay, the time is to make the change now, and I'm doing it with he says there's no pressure from anybody else to do it. I think he deserves a star for that because I just coaches most coaches get fired not because they're win-loss, because they're stubborn. They refuse to, bring in another coordinator. They refuse to change. They are what they are, and that's why they got their jobs, and that's why they lose their jobs. So I'm going to give him a star for um, bucking probably what he thought was the right thing to do to bring him in, and some early returns.
I mean, in a, it, I think this is one of the few times you can actually say that Brian Dable outcoached his opponent. I don't
It's
really
true
know
too.
what Harbaugh was thinking, not just running the ball. I mean, every time they ran the ball, it went well for them. They average something like 6 yards per carry. If you take away the 50-yard run,
Hmm.
um, th- then they just didn't want to do that. I mean, they chose, maybe because they don't trust their offensive line. Maybe they should have, though. 12 carries for 128 yards is a hell of a game for Omarion Hampton. Um,
Especially from a coach like Harbaugh, which we all agree is one of
and
the
Greg
best coaches in
Roman.
the league. Yeah.
Um, but they rather Justin Herbert drop back 41 times, and it's not like I felt like they were so far behind that they really needed to play catch up.
And the strength of our defense was the pass rush. So 41 times you're dropping back, that's 41 times you're going to go after him and get him.
Yeah, I mean,
Really was a little strange.
I I think that Brian Dable and Mike Kafka had a plan that best suited their personnel, and I think that Jim Harbaugh did not.
No,
I don't
no.
know what his plan was, but it didn't work. Um, Looking ahead, the Giants are going to New Orleans to play the Saints, who just put up quite a fight against the Buffalo Bills before falling apart. Now, did you watch any of the highlights in that game or anything?
Just some real brief highlights.
Did
Yeah.
you see their version of the Philly special?
Yeah.
Didn't go so well.
No, no, no.
It we were kind of watching the score change in the stadium, and I was like, damn, New Orleans really giving Buffalo a run for their money. And you like rewatch it, it almost feels like you ever see like a cat play with a mouse, where
Hmm.
it's just like at any given time they can just crush this team, and they're just like
Didn't
having
Buffalo do
fun
that
with it.
earlier this year too with a bad team, like early in the season?
It could be, yeah.
I
I don't
feel
know.
like that. I feel like they're just fucking around a little bit. They're gonna find out sooner or later.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's no way to play the game.
No.
Um, but that being said, do you have any real worry? And New Orleans, I think, is like one of those things where you can be like, oh, they stink. They're real terrible. They're 0-4, and Spencer Rattler stinks, and I don't really know who Tyler Show is, and all this other stuff. But this is not the worst offensive line I've ever seen. It's not very good, but it's not the worst I've ever seen. You still have Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, Brandon Cooks, Alvin Kamara, all on offense.
If you think it's so
It could
easy to
be
say this
it'll be
team is
they
bad,
could beat people.
sure. I mean, this league, the parity is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I mean, 200 and something people got knocked out of my survivor pool this week on sure bets what they thought. I don't believe in, well, 8 years ago we lost in New Orleans against whatever. That doesn't mean anything to me. It's just, you're gonna have a rookie quarterback going into his first road game, against a traditionally difficult place to play. It's always loud in there, no matter how good or bad they are. That's a different fan base than the rest of the country. Um, I don't know where Dart's from. Where's he originally from? I know he played Ole Miss, but
Utah.
where is he from?
He's a Utah kid.
Okay, so never mind the New Orleans connection.
No.
Um, I know you don't know how players react their first time in a situation, and he's playing in a dome, he's playing on turf again, and we'll see. I think he'll get another little morsel of the offense to, as they, because now remember this week now he's the starting quarterback the entire week. Because remember last week, when was the announcement made?
It was like
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
right? This guy knows Monday morning, so when he's going into film study on Monday, he's the starting quarterback.
Well, there's a couple of things there.
Mhm.
Here's two things that we're not talking about. Number one, he knows that he's the starting quarterback this morning, as no, yesterday morning.
Yesterday
Uh,
morning.
he's also bruised and battered from
Mhm.
Sunday, and I'm not just saying that. Connor Hughes has a really sexual article about how. Let's look it up.
Yeah, but
Um,
why are we reading Harlequin romances when I'm reading about football? That was really weird.
really bizarre.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, cutting through all the erotic fan fiction, um, he really is busted up from that game, and he had a concussion check during the game. They had
Hmm.
been saying that his hamstring was not feeling good. He was stretching it out on the sideline before the half. So um,
There was there was a period in that game looked like he wasn't moving at all. Like, remember?
he just handed off like there was no footwork whatsoever. He just
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah.
It was like, do you remember when Eli Manning played with plantar fasciitis,
Yes.
and he just like he was like throwing passes from like a flat-footed stance, just like And
Yeah.
I think it was like against like an inept Bucks team or something like that, and it didn't matter. Um, so I think Daniel Jones had a game like that too, in possibly 2022, where he was like all busted up and he had to finish. And I think like we were running some Saquon Barkley Wildcat at the end of the game
Yep.
too.
I remember the game. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, that's number one. I mean, he's definitely sore this week coming from Sunday. The other thing, number two, is I know the Saints are 0-4. Giants are 1-3. We're not regarded very highly around the league. Saints are looking at this as a game that they can win too. This is one of
Sure.
those ones like we got to just scratch and claw and do whatever we can to win, kind of situations. It's the same for them. They're going to be looking for every minute advantage that they have, and don't think for a second that teams are going to replicate this. Just not running the ball against the Giants. If we can't stop the run, I know for a fact Philly is going to have no problem just being like, I don't care if Jalen Hurts has 4 attempts in this game totaling 35 yards. If we win by running 300 yards on the ground, then we're going to win.
Hmm.
Um, so there's some problems there. Um, I don't know. Is there anything in particular about that game that makes you nervous outside of like just the general stadium and that sort of situation? The team stinking and not having really neighbors.
Well, I think now I'm a little worried that, without neighbors, it's a lot easier to kind of defensively scheme up this team. And I think of some of the stuff that Dart did, some of the running, I think defenses are going to be ready for it more now. So, that
Oh yeah.
3rd and 7 and, his tendency, they're going to start seeing tendencies of when he runs and where he runs and how he runs and stuff. And I think that doesn't take like 4 or 5 weeks of film. I think that you watch 1 week, and you're like, okay, notice this right away because it's still only his second start ever, in the NFL. You're not going to have a whole different Jaxson Dart out there. So I worry a little bit about you know, we we were ready for this on Sunday by doing our film work on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday with this game, something like that.
I believe you wanted to hand out a fart for a crowd member.
Gary, we gave you a star last week, and then you get COVID. You got COVID in 2025.
Wow.
This wasn't March of 2020 where we put you in a bubble for 6 weeks. It's just COVID. You were all vaccinated. Crowd needed you. You missed the beginning of the Jaxson Dart era. You get a fart. I'm sorry. Um, you know, I expect to see you next Thursday night at the Meadowlands. That's a good way to redeem yourself. It's going to be a lot of Philly fans there. But right now, Gary, you have my flatulence award right now.
Get better, Gary. They're gonna need
Get
you
better,
on that
Gary. Yeah,
Thursday. Yeah.
seriously. Yeah.
All right, that's gonna do it for this episode. We will see you guys next week, of course, on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube.
And
Tuesday
also,
morning.
check out the Giants Nation podcast, especially their mailbag, where I give you my recommendations if you're going to New Orleans, where to go.
Yeah.
That's worth watching in itself.
Yeah, mailbag episode should be coming up today as well. As you guys are listening to this, check for that on the Giants Nation show, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast stuff. There as well, and we'll be back next week after this victory against the New Orleans Saints. You want to give me an early prediction? Is this a win, a loss? How do you feel?
I think we're going to lose an ugly game in the muck. I think we're going to lose this 17-12 loss.
I'm not going to give a score, but I'm going to disagree with that. I'm going to say we're going to win again. I'm
Hey,
going to keep saying it till it happens.
hey man, I'm rooting for you. I hope to be wrong. I don't think we're consistent nearly enough yet to say we're beating bad teams just yet. Give me a couple more weeks of like Jaxson Dart get more comfortable. Things start to gel. Then I can start being a little more comfortable against the bad teams. But until then, I just see this might be a one step back thing. But that's okay. I'm not. I'm not flying planes. I'm not calling for anybody to be fired. It's just we have to go through the process now. He's our quarterback. He needs reps. He has to play. I'm fine with it.
All right, whatever you say, content guy. Um, we'll we'll be back next week.
Wow.
Until then, Go
Go
Giants.
Giants.